You got plenty of time.
Oh, yes, indeed. That was Ben Simmons talking to Karl Anthony Towns while they were playing on Twitch last night. Tracy, Ben being disrespectful or honest?
He's being very honest, but for himself, not Karl Anthony Towns, because the Hawks already beat Minnesota.
Oh.
Yeah, also, the Minnesota just lost at home to the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
There's no easy games, Ben, for those dudes.
We will discuss Karl Anthony Towns and what his coach thinks about what he needs to do later in the show. But for now, welcome to The Jump. I'm Rachel Nichols. Our insider Brian Windhorst is here alongside the Hall of Famer. Very clean today, Tracy.
Today?
Well, in particular, he's got the whites on. I'm a big fan of this look. Before we get into our regular show, we have to get to some breaking news. So professional when we do this, don't you think? Right? Isaiah Thomas will have surgery on his right hip tomorrow. Woj is reporting the Lakers are still interested in bringing IT back in free agency. So, look, Tracy, I don't know. Maybe instead of IT getting the big payday he expected this summer, maybe he looks at more of like a one-year bridge contract for next year.
Oh, absolutely. This is like an audition for him for next year. You have to sign him to a one-year deal because you don't know what type of player you're going to get coming off of this surgery. Anytime you go under the knife, it decreases your play, your performance. So his whole game is predicated on his explosiveness, his speed. Will he have that when he comes back? We got to wait and see.
So it's important to point out that this is not surgery for a torn labrum, which is what he suffered a year ago. This is a cleanup arthroscopic procedure. So theoretically, if everything goes according to plan, he should be able to recover and be ready to go by training camp.
But what do you always say, Brian?
There's no such thing as minor surgery.
Thank you.
And there's also no such thing as minimally invasive surgery, which is what they're calling it.
Right? I mean, I saw that. There was like great pains this morning taken to be like, no, he's not having his whole hip reconstructed, which is a distinction.
That's true. But I think the other point is that after everything that Isaiah went through, he was never healthy this year. He still wasn't healthy, and that's a factor. And hopefully he gets this done. He can get healthy and get back, have a recovery year, and get that money he lost out on.
Which leads to the thing I always say, which is beware of trading with Danny Ainge. All right. Back to our originally scheduled programming here. I don't know. Maybe it's because Dwayne Wade is back playing in Miami and retirement is a big conversation down in that part of the country in general. Or maybe it's because he recently turned 36 in a league where the average age is a decade younger. I mean, a lot of the greats never played past 36. That's when Larry Bird tapped out. Bill Russell was 35. Tracy McGrady, who sits just 2 seats down from me over there, was 34. Whatever the reason, ever since Wade rejoined the Heat in February, there has been a constant buzz of retirement talk around him, with Dwayne himself saying once this season is over, he will indeed consider it for the first time ever. Even LeBron James addressed it after the Heat beat the Cavs last night, saying, he just lingered on that court a little extra for postgame, talking to, embracing his friend of 15 years. Take a listen.
We've just been hearing the narrative, since he came here, is that he's not quite sure what he's going to do next year. He's going to assess everything. You just don't take for granted. You just don't know. So, we'll see what happens in the summer.
I mean, that's all very nice and poetic, and well, there's just one little problem. Did you see what Dwayne did during the game? 12 points on 5 of 11 shooting, 4 assists, 2 rebounds in just 17 minutes of play. Oh, and he had 4 blocks. 4. You know where I'm going with this because 2 of them were on LeBron.
What?
There was this second quarter one. And nope, swatting that ball into the stands. You're absolutely right, Brian. And then again in the fourth with the Heat up by 18.
And a little look down there,
Garbage time? Nope. Absolutely. I'll just take that right here. Thank you. Look, the fact that he's still got the athleticism at 6'4" to do this on the regular says something. In fact, the blocks are a good argument for Wade not to retire at all. I mean, right now he's number 2 on the all-time list, and guess who's at number 1? Definitely within striking distance. Yeah, that guy Dwayne idolized growing up in Chicago, Michael Jordan. Of course, you don't just stay playing just for records. There's the matter of this Heat team, too. Wade is not a museum piece who just sits on the end of the bench and claps his hands. Miami actually needs him on the court. And given the Heat's roster will largely be the same next season, I'd argue Miami will need him again, even after Deion Waiters comes back. And here's the other thing, what I think some players don't fully realize until it is too late. This isn't like retiring from anything else. Being a basketball player, it's not just a job. It is an identity, the core of how most guys have thought of themselves since elementary school. And being a pro athlete has a structure to it that doesn't just take place from 9 to 5 like a lot of other jobs. It affects everything about your life, what city you wake up in the morning, to what kind of food you put in your mouth, to who your friends are. You walk away from the game, you walk away from all of that at once. And once it is gone, it is gone. Now, I understand that sometimes a player's body just won't let them continue or his skill level drops way too much. But Dwayne doesn't seem to be in either of those categories. So maybe let's just put the brakes on the retirement talk, shall we? There will definitely be time for that, for Wade. This just isn't it. Do you agree with me there, Tracy?
Listen, typically when we retire from this game, mentally we ejected from the game. We don't look forward to going to practice. We don't look forward to going to games anymore. The love is just lost. We don't have anything.
You were done when you were done.
I was done. I was mentally just not engaged and wasn't looking forward to none of it. None of it. With Dwayne, I mean, he still has some left in the tank. It's not a case, can he play anymore? It's just, can his body hold up for another season? And does he want to go through another offseason of training, getting his body in shape for another rigorous season? I don't look forward to him playing 82-game season, maybe 65 to 70 games, you know, be there for his team if they're in the playoff hunt. If he can do that and he's still looking forward to waking up and going to practice and you know, playing in games, why not?
Rachel, you and I were there a lot in 2013-14 when Dwayne had to miss almost 30 games, or about 30 games, because his knee was so bad. I never would have thought he'd have been playing at this level at all in 2018 or anything. So the fact he's been able to get through those injuries and continue to be a relevant player, I congratulate him. I agree with you as well that he should continue playing. A couple of things here, though. Number one, Dwayne only wants to play in Miami.
Right.
And they don't have the mechanism to give him a commiserate contract. So he'd have to be willing to play on less money. The other thing that's interesting here, I have to speak up for the Dion Waiters fans out there, because the Heat have invested in Dion Waiters, and they've invested in Josh Richardson as their guys at that position heavily. I'd like to point out both, almost $100 million on those two guys combined. And do you really want a 36, 37-year-old coming in taking minutes of those guys to grow? So the Heat, in addition to Dwayne having a decision here, the Heat have a decision to make. For me, because I could only pay Dwayne a little bit of money anyway, and what he would bring to me, he'd be one of the best bargains in the league next year. I would definitely do it. But there are some other chemistry issues to consider.
Especially considering what already happened between the Heat and Wade and kind of how each actor was in that situation. I cannot see Pat Riley and the Miami Heat saying, no, we don't want you. And having that.
And I'm sure D. Wade is willing to take a pay cut to stay right there.
He can't take a pay cut. He's under the minimum, Trace.
Well, but to keep playing. He's got buyout money from Chicago this year, which is why that minimum is a little bit. He would take an overall pay cut.
Very true.
To play there, and you know, look, these contracts in Miami is better at them than anyone. Yes, maybe he's taking less money for this specific calendar year of season, but then maybe like Udonis Haslem, he's collecting money for a couple years later to be a de facto coach. I don't know, whenever he does decide he's
let's not even talk about like chemistry issues with, you know, Richardson and Dion Waiters next year. Let's just talk about what he brings to this team. If you see, if you recognize the energy that's in the arena from last night, I mean, this is what D. Wade does. I mean, it's good to see him back in his uniform and what he provides for this overall community, not just the team, the community.
That is a great point. Absolutely. And we've seen that, look, over this past weekend, was like a leader, not just certainly in the South Florida community, but then overall nationally. Again, it's a big deal. Tracy, the Heat then would face the Celtics if the playoffs ended today. And that is interesting because we were watching this game last night and thinking, ooh, Heat, you know, Cavaliers, maybe playoff series. But it's Heat Celtics how it lines up right now. What you saw last night, are you thinking they could upset?
I'm convinced. And if Kyrie Irving is not back in uniform in the first round, it's not an upset to me. I mean, I just think with him being out of uniform, this team is, where do they go offensively? They already struggle with Kyrie in the uniform on the basketball court. So with this Miami team being a great defensive team and the way they share the ball, yes, absolutely. I think they can knock off the Boston Celtics.
My preference would be for the Cavs to play the Heat in the first round, because I think that would
all of us will love that.
But if we can't get that, a Heat-Celtics series would be so amazing. These are two teams that play naturally very close games.
Yeah.
Part of that is because due to injuries and other factors, a lot of times when they're playing top competition, they have a talent disadvantage. So they are heavily reliant on coaching. Eric Spoelstra and Brad Stevens get under the hood and do all kinds of stuff. Think about those guys going back and forth late in the game with different out-of-bounds plays and different maneuvering. I think this will be a series, even if Kyrie is back, I think this is a series that has many. They already played one game that came right down to it up in Boston earlier this year. So I would love to see that series. And even if Kyrie is on the court, I don't think he'll be 100%. So I think it would be an incredibly tight and tough series. Anytime you face the Heat, you know that you're going to end up facing a big-time challenge because of how well coached they are and how well they play together as a team.
And how hard they play, yes.
Yes. And by the way, it's not just Kyrie who's a question.
Marcus
Smart also might not be in that first-round series.
Hey, watch.
Interesting.
Oh, Lord, don't start that.
I knew I liked you. On the other side of that game, Kevin Love took an accidental elbow in the face from Heat center Jordan Mickey. So we were focused on the tooth, right? Because he knocked his tooth, not out, but in.
Be careful what you're about to see.
Right? That Banana Republic ad campaign might get the shoot might get pushed back. But in fact, he didn't play the second half because he had concussion-like symptoms. And this morning, the Cavs announced that Love is now in the concussion protocol, which means they don't know how long he's going to be out. May I also remind you, Kyle Korver still out on bereavement leave. The funeral for his brother, I think, was just yesterday or the day before. I don't know when they get Kevin Love back. I don't know when they get Kyle Korver back. Trace, that's a lot of their offense that they're missing.
It is, but I don't look at this as Kevin Love's going to be out for a significant amount of time. I mean, yes, he's going through the proper protocol because they say he had, concussion symptoms. I see him being back, if not the end of this week, next week he should be back in uniform. I don't think this is anything serious.
I think Kyle Korver has a chance to come back at the end of this week. Certainly, I'll tell you what, online you can find the eulogy that he gave at his brother's funeral. It is incredibly moving if you want to try to find that. The Cavs have a very difficult week next week, Rachel, and an important week for seeding. They play the Wizards. They play a really important game at the 76ers next week.
That is a huge
that could determine the 3 seed.
In Philly?
In Philly, on the second night of a back-to-back. And they play the Raptors on Tuesday. So ideally, what the Cavs would love to have would be to have their full team finally back together, and we'll see what happens with the coach Ty Lue for their big next week, but we'll have to see if that happens.
But I would argue that you're at a point where every game in the season, they play in Charlotte tonight. And again, no Kevin Love now, no Kyle Korver. And they are a half a game up on Philly for that 3 seed. And again, it's not really who has home court at what point in the series. It's the bracket. Who do you play when? If they end up going into that Philly game 2 games back behind the Sixers, it doesn't matter.
And the tiebreaker's on the line for that game, too.
Yeah, but LeBron James is going to be in the playoffs. I don't care where he starts off, whether it's on the road. To me, it doesn't matter. If they have,
does it matter to you who they play, though?
No. If they have a full, healthy squad, I don't see anybody beating them.
All right.
In general, I agree with you. But I would say that this Cavs team has the smallest margin for error. And the difference between them getting maybe a still limping Celtics team in the second round versus getting the Raptors in the second round, even if they get through the first round, to me makes a difference on how hard they have to work to get through. So I do think it's relevant, even though LeBron would say exactly those words.
Absolutely.
And probably with a side eye towards you and me.
I would love to see LeBron have a challenge going through the East. It's been a breeze here the last couple of years.
I was going to say, now you're
That's what I want to see.
I'm very confident that you will get your wish, Tracy, regardless.
Let's see
I feel good about that. See, presents for Tracy. It's Christmas. Coming up, the Trailblazers picked up a huge win against the Pelicans, so we will look at their position in the driver's seat for that 3 seed out west. But first, this is a distant replay. This date, 95, a member of our Jump family, Scottie Pippen.
Rebound block.
See, Tracy thought it was him.
Yeah, 95, a little too young. Oh!
That's great.
Just stay down there for a while and enjoy it.
This is going to be interesting. Should they give him a hard foul?
I just love the position of his hand
They are giving him
as he goes tilting
He was laying
90
there to get
degrees
the
through the
flavor.
air.
No replays back then.